On this diagram, I just want to point out one more thing, and that is there's the 4 pentagons on the inside. Pentagon, the symbol of unity, the symbol found everywhere in nature and in flowers and so on. The agencies that are under the World Parliament and responsible to the World Parliament, the World Executive, the Enforcement Agency, the Ombudsman, and the World Judiciary, they are organized not to have a director, a single director, or a president. They're organized as pentagons. They're going to have 5 people in a presidium who are elected by the World Parliament. And the Constitution requires that each of these 5 be from a different continent. So you're going to have one from Asia, one from Europe, one from North America, one from South America, every time. And they rotate. The 5 of them are responsible for their agency, and they rotate every 2 years to as president of the presidium. We want to try to show you that the Constitution is structured intentionally structured to organize and include the people of Earth and their ideas and their thoughts, and to give the Earth a pilot, give the Earth a brain, so to speak. In fact, Peter Russell said the global brain awakens. And Barbara Marx Hubbard says we must engage in conscious evolution. She said those things just at this conference. Part of this global brain is not simply the internet. It's not simply our ability to travel and to work with one another as communities and individuals. It's creating for ourselves, as citizens of the world, creating for ourselves people who represent us, who are responsible for piloting our spaceship. Right now, there is no one. Right? Only 193 mostly militarized nations interested in their own self-interest. Right? There is no pilot for the Earth, no organizational pilot. And that's part of our disaster that we're facing. So, in conclusion, I just wanted to go over the 6 broad functions of Article 1. Article 1 of the Constitution says, what is this world government? What is this Earth Federation? What is the responsibility for it as an organization? And its responsibility is for all those things that are beyond the scope of nation states. No nation in the world can protect the planetary ecology. Right? If the entire United States converted tomorrow to solar energy, the world would still go down the tubes, right? If China is still producing all that and so on, and Russia and Brazil, and you've got to have everybody on the same page, right? And these 6 broad functions are those things that are beyond the scope of nation states, requiring democratically legislated world law that's enforceable not through military, because there is no military in the Constitution, enforceable over individuals. Right? If President Obama breaks the law, he should be arrested and put on trial. Right? If Vladimir Putin breaks the law, he needs to be arrested and put on trial as individuals, not military attacks on their countries and so on. So the first broad function, the thing that no nation in the world can possibly do, is demilitarize the world, disarm the world. It can be done. Weapons of war can be made illegal. In the Provisional World Parliament, if you're in our workshop tomorrow, you'll see that it has done work in that direction. No nation in the world is inherently an arms race, right? Because the United States is not going to get rid of its nuclear weapons as long as it thinks they have them in Russia and China and Israel and so on. Only an Earth Federation can disarm the world. Only an Earth Federation. So that's the very first principle in the Article 1 of the Earth Constitution. prevent war, secure disarmament, and resolve territorial and other disputes. The second principle is to protect universal human rights. And someone earlier mentioned, Ricardo mentioned the Convention on the Rights of the Child. And we also have Convention on Civil and Political Rights. Almost every nation in the world has signed these conventions, and yet nowhere in the world are human rights protected. Right? People's right to food, people's right to flourish, people's right to security. Nowhere in the world are they protected because of this structure of sovereignty, national sovereignty, which in which the nations put that at the bottom of their list after self-interest. So only a world federation can do this. Only a world federation can end poverty. Because right now the structure of the world system is that the wealthy nations depend on the poor nations for cheap goods and services and resources. Right? That poverty leads to us to have, we exploit their sweatshops, we exploit their cheap resources, we colonize the global south, and so on. This is a photo I took in Bangladesh, one of my many visits there. We have a lot of supporters in WCPA in that country. To regulate global interactions, right? The use of world resources, right, which are being depleted, and some resources should not be used. Oil needs to be left in the ground, right? Fossil fuels need to be left in the ground. We need to be using solar energy. Only an Earth Federation can make that happen. To protect the global environment, this is, as the Constitution itself says, protect the ecological fabric of life from all sources of damage, and for the purpose of keeping the Earth a safe and healthy and happy home for humanity. Right, this is my 2013 book on the right there, Our Choice, The Anatomy of a Sustainable World. It studies how the Earth Constitution creates a sustainable world, our choice between climate change or system change. If we don't change the system of the world, we won't be able to survive as far as the climate is concerned. And then finally, the last one, to devise and implement solutions to all problems which are beyond the capacity of national governments. There's lots of problems which require world cooperation that are beyond the capacity. So that doesn't mean that local governance is abolished, not at all. It's a federal system. Bradford still has its laws. The state of Virginia still has its laws. The United States still has its laws. But the world now has laws as well that apply to everybody. So the United Nations cannot do any of these things, as we've already seen, and its history shows very clearly it cannot end war, cannot protect human rights, cannot eliminate global poverty, cannot protect vital world resources or the environment. Right? Because it's a treaty, basically, of sovereign nations. So if we replace the charter, not abolish all the agencies, but replace the charter with a real constitution, with the Earth Constitution, we can address these problems. And that's what I'm saying. They recognize no law above themselves. So just the final thought here, the final point that we wanted to make, this you may recognize the photo. I took it in the Vatican last year. It's Raphael's 1510 painting called The School of Athens. And at the center of it is Plato, the older man, with his finger raised toward the ideal, the perfect world of the forms that he's talking about. And Aristotle, his pupil, the younger man, with his fingers spread out and saying, we have to look at the details of the world, the concrete reality that we live in the world. It's not just the ideal. But ladies and gentlemen, we need both, right? We can't survive unless we have a vision that we can